Hello again, everyone. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage channel here on YouTube, and today I'm going to start the oiling of the white Model 510 convertible sewing machine with the special expanding sewing deck, which I'm just incredibly fascinated with because I haven't seen it before. Now, what are we doing? This is not normal oiling, although you can use uh, this video to guide you when you're oiling the machine, but please keep in mind that this machine has not been run. We're going to assume it's been years because the vast majority of vintage machines that you get either have been run sparingly or not run in decades. And the person selling it to you will likely say, oh, it runs well. You know, mama said it runs well, grandma said it runs well, but we don't know when. Most of the time, the people who tell you this are not lying to you. They just don't know. They don't know anything about the machines, and in some ways, we're lucky they haven't just tossed them in the garbage because people have been known to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, and we'll just start over here on the right-hand side, and we're above the machine. Now, I have mentioned to you that one of the reasons that we inspect before we start getting any kind of lubrication in a machine is we want to know what's there. Remember, I showed this to you. Remember that belt? You guys see that? I pointed it out in an earlier video right there where I'm pointing. That is a black, and I believe it's a timing belt, I'm pretty sure. And you do not put oil, grease, any kind of lubrication anywhere near it. Just you want to avoid that. We do not want oil on that belt. That belt apparently, it appears at least upon visual inspection, to be in great condition. It's a rubber belt. It may have fiber, woven into it. I believe the belt was made in Japan, but I don't know if I can get one anymore for this machine. So I've done a cursory look online. I haven't seen a belt for this. So let's let that belt keep going. Who knows how long it will last. But if you get sewing oil or any kind of oil, no cleaners, no lubricants, no penetrant oils, nothing. We want that belt to stay dry and happy. But however, we do have areas that we obviously are going to be able to, we want to lubricate, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, we know that this arm swings, right? This is the, when I say this arm, I'm referring to what was pivoting was the bobbin winder. So I'm going to put one drop of oil right there. In fact, I should put it right here because that's where there we go. And that's it. That's all the bobbin winder needs, okay? And of course it is going to spin. So there is one spot. I want to encourage you to be very conservative and judicious with oil in this space because you do not want to get, in addition to that rubber timing belt, we don't want to get oil on the tire. It's not good for the tire, and I'm coming in here mopping up any excess that I had. I just wanted a little drop there. And that's it. Because bobbin winders spin if they're working properly, and if you get oil near it, it can start slinging oil all over the place and creating problems that you don't want. So, less is more there. Okay, continuing on. What else do we want to do? Remember, and I've shown you for example, the lid that goes on this machine is, it has, and I showed this in an earlier video, it has one obvious oiling point there, and it's highlighted in red. What is that above? It is right above this big cam follower right here. So we know that we're going to need oil there. That is a given. Okay? So, but before we go there, I'd like to mention that, or maybe as a reminder, because I've mentioned this in other videos when I oil machines. If you're not certain about which parts in this machine are supposed to move, if you have controls on the front like these, I have two dials here, right? And when you turn the dial, I'm going to turn the lower dial, which is for stitch length, okay? And did anything move? I'm looking to see if it did. Where's my flashlight? I don't see anything up here moving. But the knob is working freely. It doesn't seem to be, there's nothing obstructing the knob, and it seems to be happy. Okay, underneath this big shaft here is a piece of steel that is moving against another piece of steel. So I'm going to put oil down in there. You won't be able to see this. You can see it. There's another piece. Okay. So when I move the stitch length, okay, when I move that, there is something underneath here moving. There's a shaft right behind the dial. This is the lower dial. And it's turning fine. But when it turns, it pushes against a piece, and that piece pivots. And that piece pivots. Let's see. I'll really try to get this. Is extremely difficult to get the camera to see for you guys. Let's see. I'm not entirely sure it's going to show. Because it is actually, if you see this big shaft here, it's directly under that. Okay, it's further down. But if you take a flashlight like I'm doing here, I promise you, you take that lower dial, and if your dial turns, turn it, and you will see a piece, you'll see a mechanism that's rocking back and forth. And I just put 1 drop of oil, 1 or 2, on each side of it. Okay? So it is there, I promise. You will see it. You will be able to see it even though this camera will not pick it up because of the angle that you need to be at to see it. All right. So let's carry on. Now, the upper dial, not the inner upper dial, but the outer upper dial right here. Okay, I'm going to turn that. And when I do, I'm going to see, let's see what we can make out in terms of, is there anything here turning? Yes, I've got a metal piece here, and I'm just going to put a little oil there. And there's oil, you know, you want to come up against the inner side of this front wall of the machine because there's a shaft there and this dial is turning it. So we want to make sure that it has all the, and you'll see, in fact, those of you who have seen my videos on the Kenmore 158 1941 series, this is going to be similar. Okay, there's a lot going on in this machine. And the best way to know what's there, and you can turn, I'm turning the hand wheel, now you see the cams turning. What are they turning on? They're turning on a shaft. So I want to make sure I get some oil where those cams are hitting the shaft, right? And that way, it should turn more happily. Now, while we're here, that space underneath that red marking on the lid is right there, okay? This area, you know, I put a good bit of oil on that, right? And that area really needs to be able to turn. But again, you don't want to go anywhere over here. Stay away from that timing belt. You will not like it if you get oil on it, especially long term. And now I'm going to come up here where the shaft comes up against an opening where it will go to the hand wheel. I'm getting some oil in there. Haven't taken the hand wheel off yet. That's another way to access that. Okay, what else we got here, folks? Let's see. You are going to see moving parts below the area that you can see here, but you will see them moving when you start turning the dials. And so you'll want to make sure that those are lubricated. All right, what else is going on over here? Now this, let's see, we've got this. Okay, we've got our selector. Now the selector is moving. And did you see this here? This piece pivoted. So that tells you we want some oil here. Because we don't want it to have to work overly hard to, and I'm just putting oil in areas where I see metal coming together, even if the metal hasn't moved yet. Something, yeah, see that? See, they haven't moved yet, but they're going to want to move. So You won't hurt anything if you get oil on the metal, like I said. And just, get enough to where you can see that it's moving, but don't go too crazy with it, because we don't want that oil splashing on that lovely rubber timing belt. It has survived since the 70s, and no reason why it can't. Now there's a shaft here, and when you see the shaft, you know that it's going to end someplace right there. So again, we'll get some oil. There are pieces that are attached to the shaft, and they're going to need to move. Now, there's a follower. This is the finger follower on the cams. You can put some oil on the cams, but the follower typically works fine as long as it's moving here. As long as this is pivoting, you shouldn't have much of an issue, right? And if that piece fights you, don't force it. If you force it, you're going to be sorry. Not going to go well. You're gonna snap something. So this plastic knob that you hear me clacking around, it is attached to steel cams, and those steel cams are that's what these little followers are clicking against, and these are necessary because you have a cam stack here, but you also have one over here. And again, this is what allows you to set your machine to a specific stitch. And again, it's not surprising to see something this complex, because remember, this machine adds far more built-in features, automatic features, than say a Singer 15 would have had back in the day. So we're going to see more complex. We're going to see more complex mechanicals here, because the machine has to have a way to perform all of these lovely features. And again, there's no computer. All right. There was something. Oh yes. So there is a space. If I turn the hand wheel, I want you guys to see. You see where it's moving? Okay, that's the main shaft, the drive shaft. It goes from the hand wheel all the way to connect to the needle bar area, and I'm going to go ahead and put some oil right there. Okay, and yes, that's more than a drop, but this machine is very dry. It's moving, so it has some lubrication, but not nearly what it needs to have. Okay, while we're here, we'll go ahead and let's see here. I'm going to shift the perspective just a bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to, let's go back here. All right, I'm going to aim for this hole right here with my oiler and get between the metal parts right there. I've got some right here. And as you do this, your machine is going to come back to life. It doesn't all happen at once. It takes a while. That's all right. Now, let's see here. Okay. All right, now it's time we're going to move over to the left side. This, of course, is where, this is a common area that needs to be lubricated. We're not at the bottom yet. We're not anywhere near there, because we want to come over to our needle bar area, or the little side door area. People have different names they use for this. And so now I want to come down here and look from this angle. Is there something that I couldn't see above? You know, on the older machines it's a little easier, but oh yeah, that got oiled. Did everything else get oiled? So get some in here. Now, as I come around, obviously I need to oil the presser bar and the needle bar, sure. and they will need oiling above and below. There's a bushing that holds them in place. Usually the pressure bar needs some, but not as much as the needle bar, because the needle bar works hard. Now, remember, for the stitch width, right, this movement here, you see the needle moving, or do you see the needle moving? Maybe you don't. Let's try that. Okay. When I turn this, you should see the needle sliding, okay? But where the needle bar needs to get lubricated for that purpose is right here, right? Because there is a space where this mechanism lives and then it slides, right? So it needs to do this. It was doing it, but now it's a lot happier because now it can do it more easily. And remember, there is a shaft, a longitudinal shaft that moves back and forth, and it needs to be oiled. It often sticks. This one is not stuck, so I'm grateful for that, but it can, right? So again, and now it's going to want to move a lot more readily. All right, now what do we have here? We have our all right. By the way, I just noticed something I want to point out to you all. There are times when you may have a machine that you want to test and see if the reverse mechanism is working. And you're looking at it, and for example, when I touch, see if I can get all this in the camera here. This is the lever, right? When you push down on it, you have to hold it. And you will see, watch the feed dogs, you see them move, right? You see them moving back and forth. Now, if I take my stitch length adjustment and put it to 0, and hey, what's going on? I just checked my reverse button. And it pushes, it's not stuck, but nothing's moving. And if you have a machine, you think, oh no, my reverse is broken. No. It can't go in reverse because you're asking it to reverse 0. It has to have something in the stitch length. Now, if it's already 5, now I push on it and you see it moving. So that's just a little helpful tip there. If you ever think, now sometimes machines do have issues with reverse, don't get me wrong, but that's a false alarm that you may experience, and that might be useful to some of you. Okay, so now we've gotten that done, working our way further down. We're going to focus on this sewing deck, this sewing arm. Free arm machines typically have all or most of their mechanical business in the arm, right? So underneath it's a part of the frame. This is aluminum, but there's nothing below here. It's all here. And one of the reasons I believe that free arm machines typically cost more to make than a flatbed is this, what you're seeing right here. So what are we going to do? We're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to look for things that are moving when metal moves against metal. Okay. And if you want to see that movement, put your stitch length and stitch width to their maximum if they're moving, okay? So we've got a number of things here that are moving. So we're going to start. We need to get a little oil because this needs to rotate. It'll be happier if it can. Then we have here. Okay, we see this piece here rocking. So we know we need oil there. Now, this was interesting. Very often this is stuck. This is the mechanism that raises and lowers the feed dogs. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to try to get it in here for you guys. Okay, when I turn the feed dog button, and I was very careful with to begin with. You guys see that move? And then see it come back out? If that's stuck, this is where you're going to end up putting either alcohol sewing machine oil, penetrant, or all of that, along with heat to get it to unlock. So it's not like the flatbeds. So I'm going to put some oil there, and now as I turn it, okay, now I've gotten that moving much more freely, and it's happier than it was before because it can now move. All right, what else is in here we need to address? Let's see here. And sometimes, you need to look at things from different angles because you can't always tell looking at it from one direction. Your machine has things that can hide, parts that can hide other parts. So if I shine my flashlight in here, oh, okay. Now I see some goopy filth there, and don't know how it got there or why, but I want to investigate that. Not sure what I'm looking at there. Right here. Huh. That looks like some sort of grease, I believe. Huh. Yeah, I suspect that was greased for some reason. All right. So that part, oh, I see. Yeah, there's a dollop of, there's something below it that has grease. Okay, the grease is there and it seems to be happy. I'm not going to remove it. What I am going to do is maybe add a little bit more there. Grease typically is not nearly as maintenance intensive, and the reason for that is quite simply grease doesn't typically go away nearly as quickly as sewing machine oil does, and like I say, once you've greased something, it can last for quite a long time. Trying to get my little syringe here, get some grease to pull up into it. There we go. I think I got it. Let's see here if I can just get a little working room here. All right, the first thing I need to do is wipe off some of this excess, because if I don't, I'm going to get grease in places I really don't want it, and then I have to clean that up separately. And I want to work, what's that saying? Work smart and not hard, or something like that. All right, so now I've gotten some grease in there, but not exactly where I want it, because it's kind of a tight space, and that's all right. So I'm going to take one of my swabs here. See if we can get some light in here. We can see what we're doing. All right. So you can see I've got some new grease, right? I'm just going to take that grease and put it right there. When I say right there, I mean on this little roller piece that's moving, and then I can turn it. And as I do, I can sort of spread the grease around. Grease is similar to sewing oil. You know, the machine can only use so much. The rest of it is, yeah, and I'm turning it. Now it's starting to spread it around there. You can only use so much grease at one time. So I think I'll go ahead and get some straight out of my petroleum, my Vaseline jar there. Because I know that it left the factory with grease, and that tells me that's what it needs. It doesn't need oil, or I would not have seen grease there. That's not old oil. That's actually grease. The reason the old grease looked black, I don't think it was black when it was new, but over time, when metal tends to wear, it'll release particles that can cause the grease to turn a different color. Exciting topic of conversation, I know. All right, so what else? Anything else that we've missed here? Not seeing a lot that I may have missed. All right, Now let's take a look at our bobbin area. Let's focus back on the machine there. Thank you. All right. Okay. Let's see. What else is left? Okay. We don't put any oil on the feed dogs. Don't do that. Please don't do that. All right. 1 drop of oil where the shuttle meets its shaft there. And then we have this piece here. Now this is interesting because this piece pivots, which normally suggests oil, but I'm wondering if that too is an opportunity to put a little bit of grease. I don't really see. What is that? Trying to ascertain if that's grease or because there's no red marking. It doesn't say, hey, you need to put oil there. I'm going to put. I think I'm going to put. There's a pivot point back here. And as this comes out, there I've put some oil in there. And you'll notice I'm being very conservative with the oil in this area because this is where lint is born for a sewing machine anyway. Okay, now what do I want to do while I'm here? We'll get our alcohol, 99% isopropyl, and I'm going to just do a quick little clean on the race of the shuttle. And I'm doing that because over time you can get a buildup. You just never know. You might a little bit of lint there, not a whole lot. And making sure, you see lint forms everywhere, but it can also get into your shuttle and your race and make life more difficult for your machine when it's trying to do what you're asking it to do. All right. Okay. That is satisfactory to my mind. All right. So, what's left, everyone? Well, these funky areas that are totally new to me and maybe to some of you, which are these mechanisms on the end. Those of you who know my channel know that I don't often work on machines from the 70s. I have some videos that you've seen on the hybrid machines. This is a hybrid machine. Just never seen this one, but I don't remember them having this. So again, this is where the springs are, right? Remember these mechanisms, these little whatever these are, these flaps, they pivot here, so we need oil there. But look here, they also pivot here. Okay, and I'm going to oil them because and you can see it's got a nice little layer of oil right there. Okay, so now the spring's ready to do its job, but it can work a little less, breathe a little easier there. And we'll do the same here because remember, this is moving, but it also needs oiling so that as it passes through this area, and so now it's going to want to hopefully spring back a little more readily. All right. And not to be left or ignored is the actual sewing deck right here. And again, now that we've cleaned it, remember this piece here, those are my screws that will reattach it. This piece here, this piece is not under tension, but it probably would appreciate a little oil so that it can actually pivot and move, right? Probably hasn't, we can mop up any excess. It probably hasn't been oiled since it left the factory. I'm pretty sure even a servicing dealership may not have bothered to do this. People don't often think about the sewing deck, but I definitely think about it here. Look at this. We've got all these moving parts. And this is a little slider, right? So now the spring is nice and healthy, but now we've helped the spring do its job because these pieces of steel that are moving, I think it's steel, that are moving against other pieces of steel, well, they had, originally had sewing oil, right? So again, the spring is in good shape, but if you want the spring to work, yeah, you gotta give it what it was meant to have, which in this case was sewing machine oil. Right? It seemed to be working fine before, but I think it will be a lot happier once it has, now that it's been cleaned and lubricated. Now look at this piece, these pieces, there's one on both sides, and they go up, I believe these pieces here go in there. That's how they seat. However, they are narrower, so I'm not going to grease that because it doesn't seem to be snug, right? So it's not like when that goes in there, it's not going to be rubbing. It shouldn't really be rubbing, so I'm not going to oil that. If you guys think I should, let me know. Okay, so now we are going to reposition this piece, and I am going to do it for the first time because I've never done it before. If you've never done it before, don't be scared. Just follow along, and you may have a better way to do it. And if you do, you are welcome to share that. All right. So I mentioned earlier the needle plate. Now the needle plate, it goes in one way. Obviously, you need to be able to read it, right? So it's going to be going in with this little clip on the right because we need that clip on the right. And then there's also a clip on the left. And I think that these clips would be very appreciative of a little bit of grease. And I say a little bit, I mean it literally a little bit. All right. Where do you put it? You put it on the part that is going to be rubbing, right? The part right there. It's similar to these little, I'm looking for one here. Here we go. On the door, we also have, it would help if I put the camera here. I've shown these little tension clips before. Putting just a little bit of grease on there, a little film of grease, is helpful. But right now I'm going to get the other side of the plate, and that's way too much there. Again, you're not drowning this thing in grease because it doesn't need that much, right? The more you put, the more magnet it is for lint. So let's just, we're just going to buff it off there. So we have a very thin film. That's all you need there. It really is all. I know it doesn't look like much, but you don't need much. In fact, less is more. So let's keep that in mind. And while we're at it, okay. Okay. While we're at it, we'll go ahead and get some on the door clip that I was showing you. And again, just a nice thin film. And again, once you have done this to a machine, once you've greased these areas, you don't really need to worry about it. I mean, you can go years without worrying about this, okay? It's not like the other oiling points. Oiling your sewing machine is going to happen a lot more often. It needs to happen a lot more often than grease. Thankfully, grease is not as demanding. Okay, so when you put your needle plate back, you don't put it on like that. It goes into the sewing deck. And let's see how it goes in. Well, before I put it back, maybe it would be nice to go ahead and go around this rim here. There's not much. There's some little bit of filth, old dirt. Could be old oil. I clean this typically on any sewing machine just so that the plate can seat. And the plate's probably going to be willing to go on there regardless, but I like to have, when you're asking your machine to wake up and do things, you know, you try to give it every advantage it can, you know, because the machine was designed to ideally have this level of service. Fortunately, they were tough enough to survive without it. All right, now let's take our plate, make sure we have it again. It needs to face us with the numbers so that the numbers read properly. And the longer tension clip is on the right. And I am going to come in like this. And it snaps into place, okay? If you need to remove it, you go underneath and you can literally you can push it out. So there we go. Okay, so that's done. What's left? Now I'm going to turn the machine toward us like this because what I'm trying to figure out, let's get our pressure bar out of the way. See a little bit of oil coming down the needle there. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across, and what I'm trying to make sure that I accomplish here is that I want the mechanism to seat properly, right? Because it works off of a right, where's my, gotta find my feed dogs here. Let's see, I see the feed dogs now. Okay. Now, notice what I did. I don't know if you saw this, but this is the lever that normally when your sewing deck opens up like flower petals, which is so cool, right? Because I showed that to you guys. What it does is when we turn the knob, you saw the mechanisms inside now. This flips out, or should flip out, and this little piece supports the sewing deck. And then of course it also has the other end that's supporting the back. So when you want to close it, right, you can open it back and front. When you're opening it, you use this knob. But when you want to close it, you got to come over here, okay, push this in, and you can see when you push this, it pivots that big chrome arm that you saw before, and the back piece has already come in, and now they click into place. Now I'm going to hold this down because I haven't put the bolts back in yet, but let's turn it again just to see how it works. Haha. And I turned it again. Now when you turn it like that, remember, now I've got to pull this out. As far as I know, it's not designed for this piece here to come flying out, probably so it doesn't whack into this and make a loud sound and frighten the sewer. So, okay, so what's left? We're going to put, come here, sewing machine oil. We are going to put our bolts back into place. And again, this is a one-time thing. This is not normal oiling, but I like to make sure that the bolts will have the rest of their lives will have a happy life. And they got one drop of sewing oil they have not had, I'm pretty sure, since it left the factory in Japan. And get my screwdriver tip here, and again, when you're turning bolts like this, if you don't have it in properly and it fights you, stop, turn it back out and try again, because you don't want to cross thread it. You'll strip the threads, and then you got a problem that you don't want. So, and this is true of anything. Anytime you're reattaching something, because I've had to deal with things that people have stripped, and what a royal pain that is. Okay, so now we are. Okay, now one of the things I need to do is I need to flip back. You'll notice the feet, I don't know if you can tell this, but the feed dogs did not come above the level of the plate. And why is that? Because I was adjusting this. Remember, I was oiling that. So now, this symbol, by the way, these symbols vary on the machine. So I want to show it to you. So if you see it, if you don't have the manual, let's take a look. We'll zoom in here and I'll show you. The symbols change. So this symbol here means the feed dogs are below the plate, I think. And then if I turn it like this, I heard a nice little click. Now the feed dogs are above the plate. Okay, and we'll see if they work, if I was correct or not. So we come up, and there they are. Yes, now they are ready to do some work, hopefully. Now, did I get everything? We know. Let's zoom back. Let's take a look. Let's take stock of our knobs and controls. So I'm able to turn this, and it seems to be turning just fine. I just found the manual. The manual was online, and I'm gonna make sure. And if you cannot turn this knob, do not force it, because you will strip this plastic right off the steel and you won't have control anymore. So again, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here, to make sure that we have it functioning but without harming it. Okay, so what about the other knobs? Well, down here on stitch length, it tells us stretch stitch right here, I guess, for number 5. I didn't know it did stretch stitches, but I'm not surprised. It's a 1970s machine. Stitch length, and of course we can turn it all the way over to 0, and that would be for like free motion work. You would lower the feed dogs, and then here you have the buttonhole. It's going to have a very tight zigzag stitch, like a satin stitch. Now this turns fine. I'm happy with that. And if you're not sure if this moving dial is doing anything, look at your feed dogs. Okay, so as I turn the dial, watch the dogs. Watch the dogs. See, they're moving back and forth as they should, because they get positioned based on your stitch length. All right, now let's check the next thing to check. The knob. I've already shown you the reverse knob, and it works great. It just depends. You just remember, you've got to have some stitch length going. If you have it to 0, you're not going to get any reverse. Now over here with the stitch width, when I turn the inner dial, which has the numbers on it, like, there we are, like that, you can see over here by the needle, you see the needle moving, right? So, and I won't know until I test the stitching if the needle, if we have full zigzag, or if it's the way this feels. I'm gonna hope. Well, I can turn it now. Let's see. We go over here to the left. To the right and to the left. Now, now why is that happening? You'll notice that it is moving, but it's not moving very wide. It's not moving all the way. But that is because we have one more dial that we got to check here, and it's this one. You have R, which I believe means right. L is left homing, and then M is middle. And this little arrow is saying go clockwise. Okay. Okay. Now I just moved that. That was very stiff, and that made me nervous. Okay. Don't like stiff knobs, because a stiff knob is a knob. It is probably not long for this world if we don't figure out what's going on with it. Okay. So what moved? Something I hadn't seen move before. Right here, I did get some oiling in here, right? It was in here. Right in here. Okay, I can tell these pieces here are the ones that need to move. Again, staying very well clear of my timing belt. Be careful with that. All right, this needs to be oiled. This here, these little mechanisms. Oh yes. And then there's a connection to that inner knob, and it's right here. So you want to put some oil there. Now it may still be stiff. I just turned it again. Okay. Now what's happening? It is moving at its own pace, but it's going to need some more time to, it's not supposed to be super smooth because it locks into place, but we have a series of metal pieces here, little discs that need to be oiled. So make sure, and I'll point with the oiler where I'm talking about. Right here. Right there. You can see the brass end of the oiler. And then right here behind this spring, there are pieces that need to be oiled right there. Okay? And if you see other linkages that they appear to be moving or needing to move, then you oil there. And that's how you discover this, because your normal manuals, especially by the 70s, they tell you to oil your machine somewhat, but not like they should. Now, let's go back. Now that we've seen, as we're supposed to, the metal behind the plastic, which is really important when you're trying to wake a machine up. Plastic is fine on the knobs as long as the metal's ready to play and work. If it's not, you just never force your knobs, guys. Don't do it. Getting a replacement knob is going to be, it's going to be tough. Okay, this should be obvious, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. So there's an indicator on most sewing machines should have these indicators, unless you're going back more than 100 years, in which case our ancestors, they were really smart. They had to figure it out. Things like tension. Anyway, you have an indicator here and an indicator here. So this indicator works for both the stitch width as well as the inner knob. So remember, up here you have two knobs, right? This one has been turning fine forever. So I've got it on the widest stitch width for zigzag, for example. And right now let's see, it just happens that it's on R. Okay, now the little piece you grab a hold of, it's pointing to M, but this arrow is where it's set at. So right now it's on the right. It has a right bias, supposedly. So now I have my needle. Okay. So I'm still not sure if my zigzag capability is ready to work. But what I'm going to do when I get ready to test the stitches of this machine, I'm going to put, now I just went backwards. I'm not sure if I was supposed to do that, right? Because there's a buttonhole 1, buttonhole 2. I just found some more moving pieces. How about that? Yep. I didn't see those until I was moving this. I'll show you. When I was moving into the, where are you? Make sure I have this. Where I was moving into the buttonhole area, you guys see this right there? That area has got moving, they look like discs. They're not stitch discs, but they're moving flat pieces of steel, and they really, really, really need to have oil. They are just starving for lubrication here. And, I wouldn't have known how many of these pieces need to be oiled until I saw it. That's why, when you're trying to get something to work, you're trying your best and you think, well, okay. All right, so now I have, as far as I can tell, and over time, if you may be worried to think, well, maybe I missed an area. You might, and if you do, over time, you'll get a feel for what you have oiled before, and if the machine wants oil for something, it'll eventually reveal itself. Remember, these machines they're not digital, but they speak to you. Now, let's take a look. I have the dial set on M for middle, so that should be middle needle position, wide zigzag. Now, let's look. Let's look at the needle. All right. Now, what am I getting? I'm getting movement. Now I'm over here to the left, and I'm on the right. Now, should it be coming over a little bit more? Quite possibly. Now, what that means is it could be that I still have some resistance for my zigzag movement. And one of the ways to address that is to start, especially with a machine that is, this machine was stiff, but not nearly as bad as some I've gotten. And so one of the things I may do is when I start to experiment with to see how well it sews, how well it forms a stitch, I'm going to let the zigzag run at the widest setting with middle needle position, right? And when I do that, my hope is you start running it, you'll notice that it eventually works its way past anything that it's stuck with. Now that is not going to work for a machine that's very stiff and asleep. If you do that, you can possibly damage the machine. But this machine is very, very it was sleepy, but not in a coma. So hopefully it's going to work itself into a fine running machine. I hope you've heard that expression, it runs like a sewing machine. When people tell me that when they're trying to sell something that's not a sewing machine, well, that doesn't mean much, because a lot of the sewing machines, almost every machine I get, doesn't run when I get it, so, or it has some problem. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, we are almost at the end of our work here, although there is something I need to go back and make sure I checked on our motor, because our motor has the option to be lubricated, I believe. But in any event, I really appreciate you watching my first series on a machine I have just now seen for the first time, the white 510 model, and it has its flip out sewing deck, which I think is just really interesting. So if you have benefited from watching this series or any of my videos on the channel, feel free to donate. You can click on the Buy Me a Coffee links. Any of them are all over the channel there, and it will take you to my own page, and you can support my efforts to purchase more of these machines and save them from oblivion, because that's what often happens to them. Because many people today, although my viewers are the exception to this, many people today assume that if a consumer product quits working, well, you throw it away and get another one. Well, that's not true of vintage sewing machines, and it's even a hybrid machine like this. If you're lucky and it hasn't been abused, you can save them and keep them running. How long will a hybrid machine run? I don't know. But someone will find out. The client that brought this to me will hopefully be able to get some use out of it, but can't get ahead of ourselves because I haven't seen if it will sew a stitch yet. This is, again, the process that I'm showing you as we go through the waking up of the white 510 1970s sewing machine with stretch stitches, apparently. It says so right there. And I will see all of you in the next video as we work to, hopefully, we're working toward getting to test out the machine and see what it will actually do. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.